So hi everyone, I'm George Boretos. I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of CubeRM. CubeRM is a specialized software vendor offering tender management, end-to-end tender management and pricing solutions in the market. Today you're watching CubeCast, a series of video episodes where we discuss everything about tendering and pricing excellence. For this episode today, we have together with us Steve Laborda. Steve is the CEO and founder of Valuebizbooster. Valuebizbooster is a specialized consulting agency with experience in value-based selling and pricing, and of course, in tendering. And together we will be discussing about the relationship between tenders and of course, his experience, value-based pricing and selling. So, Steve, it's great that you have you here today with us. Thanks for joining. And can you tell us a couple of things about yourself and your experience before we move ahead?
Thanks, George, for inviting me to the CubeCast. So briefly about me, as you might hear, I'm French and have spent too much time in Germany because I have this weird accent. But from background, I'm a PhD chemist, and I have quite quickly moved in the chemical industry to the sales and marketing side, moving towards commercial excellence. And I have now, for 2 years, my own company, as you mentioned, where I focus as a consultant, coach, and trainer on all the topics related to commercial excellence, like tender management, pricing, value selling, and much more, as well as social selling, obviously.
Okay, thanks, Steve, again for joining us today. One question that I think is very common in all the people that are involved in tendering. When we think of tenders, we think of pricing. It's dominant, it's very important, and we think that always the least bidder will win the tender. Is this the case, or have we seen different types of tenders out there in the market?
Actually, that's the perception that you have out there. For many years, price has been kind of the main driver. But there's another type of tenders, which is called meat tenders, which I like to say also even vegetarians can answer this one. And meat stands for most economical advantageous tenders. So it's quite interesting because the government has realized that actually they are losing in quality by having only price tenders. And that's why they developed these meat tenders who are including some additional aspects in different weights, which can be related to quality, to performance, sustainability sometimes, or even innovation in some cases.
Okay, so you talked about meat tenders with a strange name, but it's all about combining quality criteria with pricing. So we get that. How frequent are these tenders, this tender type, and should the suppliers bother about it, analyzing this part of the tender market?
Yeah, so very valid questions. And here also one size fits all doesn't apply for those tenders. So there's a big variety depending, especially if you look at Europe or the European Union, you see a broad variety. So in some countries like France, you have up to 95% of the tenders that are meat tenders. And in some other places, it can go down as 40 to 30%, yeah, where the rest obviously is then all price. And for instance, what surprised me is that Germany, for instance, has a low rate of meat tenders. So that is kind of surprising knowing the culture of Germany as well. So that definitely is an important. So should they bother? Yes, definitely. Because as you see, the share of tenders, so you can't just avoid them. Because I mean, 40% is even significant. So you don't want to leave the opportunities aside, yeah, because that means you would leave quite a lot of opportunities business-wise. And then on the other side, meat tenders is a great opportunity, of course, to not to leave money on the table, because as price is not anymore the differentiating criteria, but other aspects, you can really create or capture even value. So that means also your prices are not the main component. So your profitability as a supplier is not squeezed as strongly as a price-only tender.
You mentioned that there is a huge difference or big difference between countries and how they use meat tenders. Have you seen any differences cross sectors as well?
I would say if you look broadly in industrial manufacturing or even chemicals, you see always similar trends. You might have a change of few percent points from one country to another. Um, Life science, I'm not an expert, so there I wouldn't know really which is the strongest place where tenders apply anyway. But I would say you don't see too much differences, though I would recommend just to make an analysis across the countries to identify where you have most of the opportunities. What surprised me is that you don't have any regional trends. Yeah, so this typical, let's say, Eastern Europe or South Europe trying to squeeze more towards price and the northern part of Europe maybe more towards value. This is something that I haven't seen for, let's say, in a broader sense in industrial manufacturing.
Okay, let's go now to your area of expertise, which is value-based selling and pricing. Value-based is based on differentiation. That reminds us a bit of the quality elements and criteria incorporated to meet the tenders. Is there really any similarity there, any relationship there?
I would say, yeah, there is, of course, a certain relation, even though the process is slightly different, because of course a tender, you don't have a strong value discovery phase as you would have in value selling. Though I see there's still some preparation work to be done to best answer those mid tenders, to best understand what are really the criteria that really matter and what does it mean, because of course you have some percentages or some weighted averages in the tender that tells you what is important, but at a high level. So you don't know really what is really so critical or what is really the need or the pain point of your customer in the background. So by preparing that in the right way, you can have an higher impact and let's say a higher profitability of success, a probability of success, sorry, of winning the tender.
Okay, let's now move to something else from the quality aspects of a tender to fighting against time. Something that we hear a lot from customers or from the market is that from the time the tender is officially published until the official submission of the tender, usually they don't have a lot of time. It's 1 month, 1.5 months, something like that, especially if you have mid-tenders with many quality criteria. These are more complex tenders. Or if you have a big tender with big teams involved, having just a few weeks to prepare is simply not good enough. So are we lost there in this fight against time, or is there something that we can do?
I mean, like I like to say, after a tender is before a tender. So of course, this applies a lot on let's say recurring business. Yeah. So for instance, the chemical industry I know well, the chemicals can be seen as a consumable. So those tenders, for instance, are repeated on a regular basis every year, every second year, every third year, depending on the frequency. And then of course there you have a big opportunity to prepare yourself and anticipate the tenders. So of course you need to have the capabilities in place for that, but that helps you a lot to be ready. So it's not like just waiting in a caricatural way that the tender falls on your desk and then you start to work. So you can prepare yourself up front, yeah, by knowing what are the typical requirements, yeah. So this really means, first of all, on that aspect, you need to prepare a lot. And then one thing that is not completely related, but I would like to stress is tenders are often seen as individual events. And actually, tender business should be seen as a strategic exercise because it's really like playing chess. Yeah, so you have a set of tenders and you need to see which ones have the highest probability to win, which move will bring you to the business where you have the highest win rate, and not just answering one and like throwing a coin and let's hope for the best in a sense. Yeah, because that will help you to define what is the ones you want to apply for. So that will bring you the aspect of not wasting resources from an early phase to a later phase, and then on top, not leaving money on the table. Because I mean, if you know that one of your competitors has already answered many tenders and maybe doesn't have any capacity, they will not bid at a low level. So you don't need to bid at a low level to win. So you will have a gap which you can earn as additional profitability. So this really, think about it really as a chess game. I think that helps a lot from my perspective when I talk to customers.
I like this idea and this notion of chess playing because I understand that tenders are more complex and more sophisticated than they used to be. It used to be only about pricing. Pricing is definitely there. It's a dominant element of success. But now you have a chase against time, trying to find ways to plan ahead, as you said, also putting in the qualification factors and elements and the differentiation of the company in numerous fields. So it's much more complex. You really need to have a different strategy possibly per country or per different contracting authority. So it's much more a sophisticated game now as it used to be perhaps before 10 or 20 years. And I understand that value-based selling and pricing definitely has a big relationship and a big contribution to offer to our success in this type of tendering overall. So, Steve, thanks again for everything. I don't know if you have any last comments or piece of advice for our audience.
No, I think really just to summarize, it's really try to capture as much value out of the tenders by targeting specifically what you want to achieve between the price and the mid tenders. Yeah. And really see it as a strategic exercise so that you get most out of it and having the biggest impact. So just to keep it simple in a sense is preparation is the mother of victory in that case.
Okay, so again, Steve, thanks so much for joining and for sharing all these valuable experiences and insights. And thanks everyone for watching. If you like what you've seen, and if you want to learn more about tender and pricing excellence and how to boost your business performance, your revenues, and your profitability, then please subscribe to our YouTube channel and watch out for additional episodes of CubeCast. Also, one more thing, together with Steve, we're going to also do a webinar around mid-July. We will release the details for the webinar in a few days, where we will deep dive to everything that we discussed here today, offering also some additional insights from past reports and surveys that we have done together. So again, feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us to all social media means out there of our company. And thanks again for watching us. And Steve, for joining this episode. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Damn.